You're listening to the WCEN podcast. Hi everyone, I hope that you're doing well. My name is Peaks and you're listening to the WCEN podcast. The reason for this podcast is to keep the communities and multi-faith networks informed on services and how to access them, to keep the spirits uplifted during this global pandemic that we're going through. The UK is on lockdown. Certainly some people are starting to see little glimpses of it coming out now. This is almost 8 weeks in, but we're still seeing things develop and change all the time. So we're going to be speaking to people from various professions, from healthcare professionals to people from multi-faith networks, community groups, volunteers, people who have something to contribute and to advise and to keep us all informed about what's going on. And on today's podcast show, we're going to be speaking to Naseem Aboobaker, who is the co-founder of the charity Mushkil Aasaan, which evolved as a grassroots organisation from a front room by a group of Muslim women in the early 90s. I'm sure she has a very unique and interesting story and lots to share. So, Naseem, are you there?
Yes, hello, Pete.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Enjoying the sunshine.
Okay, that's great. You're outdoors and getting a little bit of that exercise that you can still have.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. All right, so I've just given everybody a brief introduction about who you are and kind of what you do, but it's obviously great to hear it from yourself. I mean, so if you could give us a little bit of your history about who you are, where you're from, and the kind of line of work that you do leading up to us here at the, before this lockdown.
Okay, so my name is Naseem Aboobaker. Mushkil Aasaan was founded about 25 years ago and was in my front room for a decade. I come from the warm heart of Africa, a colonial country by the name of Malawi. I came into the country as a very young mother, and from there on, my life experiences led me to start a project like Mushkil Aasaan.
I mean, all the way from Africa, Malawi. So what
Yes.
brought you to the UK? Do you mind me asking?
It was a huge culture shock, and it was I wasn't here by choice, so it was all the more difficult to get adapted to the life here.
Mm-hmm.
But the deep isolation I felt and my life experiences made me wonder how I coped through migration and through the difficulties faced by women. I could speak English and I was strong, but what do women do who do not have the language or are not assertive enough to be able to cope? And that's how we started as a group of women helping each other. And then from that, we started a volunteering service. And that is how we were then, under the 1993 Community Care Act, were offered by Wandsworth Borough Council to become a voluntary organization, and from there on, a provider for care.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
So you started this up. Was it your front room that you started up the organization, or was it one of the other ladies?
Yes, it was myself with my wonderful friends who we had formed a group for helping each other as women, as mothers, and we were organizing activities for our children, and that's how it started.
So how did you kind of start off spreading the word and bringing people in and seeing what these needs were?
Once we formalized and some of the families were receiving our volunteering service anyway, there was such a demand that, it was by word of mouth. We never had to advertise. And for the next 20 years, you wouldn't believe it. It never felt like work.
That's amazing.
It was such rewarding work and all working in the project was so dedicated to the cause that we so enjoyed it all, and it never felt like work.
And the name Mushkil Aasaan, can you give us a little bit of history on that name?
Okay, so I get this call one day then from Wandsworth Borough Council asking me, what account do you want your first grant to go in? And my co-founder was totally against getting any money because she kept saying, you don't do this sort of work for money. You do it for Allah's sake, meaning for God's sake. So you don't get paid for such work. You shouldn't. But I was a single mother wanting to develop a career as well. And so I'm walking to the bank and I'm saying to myself, oh Lord, help me. What do I do now? And in our language, it means, oh Lord, ease my difficulty. And that's how the name came about. So Mushkil means difficulty and Asan means eased.
Wow.
So that's the story behind our name.
Very fitting indeed. All right, so moving from your front room with all these
Yes.
community ladies into an actual building, what did that kind of do? I mean, did you have to learn new skills? How did you all kind of adapt to life in that way there? And yeah, in a business model as well now, because you have to run it efficiently in a completely different way, I can assume.
When in the decade that we were in my room, we were amazingly having to learn new things all the time, and we found ourselves doing very well at it. The business management, the financial management, and of course the strategic work and the systems. And we went through all the changes that all organizations have gone through. Like the home care service was national minimum standards, then it became C-Sky, and then it became CQC, and we've been through all the changes that the NHS and the statutory services, social services went through. The facts, which was the criteria for eligibility for services. So we were good at learning all these new things and doing well at them because our service was so dedicated to what we were doing, and we were doing it so well. So all the bureaucracies we learned to manage very well, even before we moved to our center in Tooting. And then when we had to move out of my front room, I was very blessed with a wonderful team. So my co-founder was always there for the emotional support. Then I had a brilliant mentor in the name of Bernadette Khan, and she was a social worker from St. George's Hospital, who was also now wanting to do community work with us. So she was always there to mentor us through any bureaucracies or any hurdles we went through. And she always said that if you were to move out of this front room, it will have to be our own place. It won't be a room, a rented room, which is what it might have come to, because Wandsworth Council were offering us a room in Bedford House. But amazingly, it was really a miracle. We were able to get the center that we have now through the support of a wonderful estate agent who hung on for 6 months till we sorted out how we could purchase it. The 3 of us went from one bank to another, and everybody sort of gaped at us that how will we be able to manage getting such a building. And we were blessed then by then just uh, a private a private person guaranteeing a loan,
Mm.
and it was miraculous. Just by guaranteeing a loan, we were able to get the building, and we were with the increase in the work in the we've not relied on grants or handouts ever. Um, we've always survived on income generated from our home care service. And so the demand was so high for our home care service that we were able to pay off the loan within 2 years,
Wow.
which was miraculous. So once we were in the heart of Tooting and within the diversity of Tooting, it's been non-stop in being able to provide the service to a wider community and a wider spectrum, and also being able to recruit people who would have never ventured into work, but we support them through the, language barriers and training and all that. And yes, and then it's been ongoing since then.
I mean, and the fact as well, you said that you were a single mother when you came as well. I mean, what was the challenges as being a mother, looking after children, as well as, how
But,
did you adapt to that as well? And studying and doing all these things and then taking on a building.
but I didn't come as a single mother, but I became a single mother here, and I was a very cultural, traditional Asian girl, and so very much part of an extended family, but circumstances were such that I had to escape domestic violence and break up, and then reared three children on my own. And my first one had a disability as well, so that I had to cope with that as well. So in retrospect, all that made me all the more stronger then to face what I did and to do what I did.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And so moving on now, we're here and it's the lockdown, which has happened globally for everybody. And so here in the UK, we're now going into like 8 weeks and stuff. So if you could tell us a bit about how you've managed to maintain going along as a kind of key figure there in the community. As you said, all the community works that you do, there's so many people who come through your building. How did this kind of UK, the lockdown, affect the goings on with Mushkil Aasaan and how you adapt into it?
Yes, so it was petrifying to begin with because I was so concerned with our 100 care workers going into people's homes and providing a service and the risks involved in that. And, it sort of come February, I was so worried as to how we are going to manage that. And, guidance was very slow in coming through. And it only sort of started very late, coming through in March, sort of end of March when the lockdown started. And then we were like bombarded with it. So it was really difficult coping with all the guidance that was around. But we've managed wonderfully well. Of course, all our support groups that happened in the center had to close down, but we had to reassure all those who attended, which is like about 400 a week, that we were there for them. So we were sending out letters, messages, of what support people needed. And of course, our home care service had to continue. And so we had a wonderful dedicated team who continued providing the service. They were out of the 100. At one point, there were about 30 who had to, who were either not wanting to go into providing the care into people's homes, or were having to isolate because of symptoms within the family. And so we were like constantly trying to manage the rota by the hour.
Mm.
And we've done really wonderfully well in that. So it's only now things are beginning to stabilize. But up until now, it was extremely hectic in managing that service. For the other users of the support groups and the community at large, we made it known to them that we were there for them. So there's been a lot of emotional support over the phone that our team have been providing. We've been arranging volunteers for shopping for the isolated and the elderly. And we've also been able to arrange hot meals through Bala Mosque for those who are extremely isolated, and we're sending care workers to go and buy food for them. And the care workers were having to stand in queues for a long time. So this has really helped. If they are having a hot meal delivered to them, then the care worker is able to get on with the things they are supposed to be doing.
That's really good. I mean, because obviously, you know, you're part of as well, working with WCEN as part of their community group networks. So if you could tell us about, you know, the family therapy services and the co-production work that you guys have been doing together. I mean, and obviously it's shown it's really important to have these kind of things in place, especially now.
As I was saying to Malik about our work with the Community Empowerment Network, that now more than ever there is such a need for the mental health services and for the culturally sensitive ones, because, you know, when people of faith feel, oh, it's not right to feel depressed, or it's not right to feel the way we do at times. So there is such a need for holistic, culturally and faith-sensitive services, because in the work that we do, we've given out so many prayers to people. We've given so much emotional support, and in trying to make people understand what we're going through and how we can be resilient to it and how we can have coping strategies. And that's really worked. And so with our mental health work, it's imperative that we move ahead and be able to provide more formal services. Because like the Talk Wandsworth sessions were so popular, and what it did was it destigmatized mental health in the community.
And the work that you guys were doing, I mean, before this lockdown happened, there was a lot of training. You were working with Citizens Advice and things. Is that right? Were you doing the work with Citizens Advice as well?
Yes, because you know what we find throughout our history is counseling on its own doesn't work, because you can, from now to doomsday, be trying to empower people and talking to them and making them emotionally stronger. But when there are other things that are hindering that process, it really makes it difficult. So what really works with our service is the advocacy service.
Mm-hmm.
So we are there for people to, manage their correspondence. We are there to help them apply for welfare rights. We are there to advocate for them, to housing, to legal services, in every way and form. So this added service complements the counseling service, and it really then empowers people and to get on with normal life. Mm. And it's really amazing how much then those people want to give back to the community. From Springfield and Mental Health Services, we've had patients referred to us who have had suicidal attempts. And when they refer to us, we pick them up from where they are and handhold them through the processes and make them empowered enough to manage their lives again. And these people, wonderfully, always then want to give back to the community. And they then register as volunteers or want to help in some form of way.
Yeah, I mean, so you said that you worked with Springfield and stuff, and you have referrals, and obviously, maybe coming from there, maybe they were dealing with it with medication, but you maybe spoke about cultural things that you do, and maybe a more holistic approach. What's some of the things that you've done from people who have come to you? What kind of services is it that you give?
Yes, sadly, when it starts with, I think the GP is the first stop. And GP is, sadly, all they do is prescribe antidepressants.
Mm.
And that doesn't solve the issue, apart from making them doped.
Mm.
So what we do is we assess each individual and we look into their history, their background, their cultural needs, their faith needs. And from there on, we empower them, we pick them up from where they are. So for example, suicidal patient, it was just allowing her to come to us every day, share a meal with us, sit around, look at people, and from there on, we try to give her a bit of tasks to do, and then going through the trauma she'd been through in her life experiences and giving her the time to heal with counseling, and then picking her up from there, and then she went on to training and then to a job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we operate.
Wow.
So we get into the underlying issues as to what the issues may be for that particular person. And so each has an intense assessment first of what the issues are, be it physical, medical, or emotional, or family dynamics, and it's the personalized support that we give from there on that makes the change.
Mm-hmm.
So we would apply for housing for them if needed. We would try and get what their entitlements are as welfare rights. I mean, just throughout the lockout, this past week, we had a referral from victim support of an Asian lady who knew no English, so that was a huge barrier for her. She had been brought in as a spouse to look after a disabled child of the husband. And that didn't work out, so she had been kicked out of the house all of a sudden. Victim support, there was this, the Justice Center in Croydon, none of them were able to help her in practical terms. And then victim support referred her to us. And we had a session with her, and we realized what her needs were. So if we'd gone to the Citizens Advice Bureau for welfare rights advice, that would have taken even longer. And at the moment, this person was sleeping rough. So we put in an application for universal credit immediately. We provided her with some substances like food and money, and we provided shelter for her. And now, within a week, she's got a place to live in. She's now not dependent on charity because her universal credit came through. So she can now live in her own place and pay rent. And now she's already looking for training and to work. So it was such a turnaround for her within a week.
A week? That's amazing work right there.
Yes, so
Wow.
victim support were really, really astounded that we did that in a week,
Mm-hmm.
within a week.
Gosh. I mean, all that in amongst the lockdown that's gone on, and you've managed to pull all that together is just
Yes,
amazing work. It just goes to show you the obviously the
yes,
resilience, the training, and the obviously the connections as well that you have. I
yes.
mean, so in terms of obviously everything that is going on, we are talking about obviously that there's a virus and a pandemic going on. Has the needs has that affected you more within your community groups, or is it still maybe the same kind of things that were happening before in terms of maybe domestic violence support and such a things? What's kind of happening in your community?
But in the community, obviously, there have been people who have died, people known to us in the community. And like, Sheikh Suleiman has managed that a lot by even going into hospital to the chaplaincy service
Mm.
and seeing patients. And then we had to help the mosque recruit volunteers for burials because there were specific needs for the burial services. So we've helped in that. We've Our volunteers have supported families emotionally over the telephone because of the social distancing. Um, and then, luckily, Mushkil Aasaan, as specified as I have been, we've only lost one client um, um, that we provided care to for the past 10 years. She passed away. But with all the fear and anxiety, we've really managed well
Mm-hmm.
within our care workers and our clients. But as a community, we've seen the need for the volunteers, for the funeral services. There has been the need for providing meals to families and just emotional support to distressed families.
And in terms of obviously you work with the NHS and then with the government advice of putting the UK on lockdown and closing public buildings and places of worship and such things, how do you think, and obviously the social distancing as well, what do you think about the effectiveness of taking that approach for you yourself, who works within a community, works with various types of people and things, and obviously working with care workers and stuff? What do you think about that approach of putting everything on lockdown and closing buildings? Do you think it was effective, or how do you think it should have been approached from somebody from your perspective?
When I mean, the fear and anxiety was such, and in containing that and being resilient to that, of course, we feel social distancing was absolutely necessary to block the spread of the pandemic. But going back now to easing it, um, we are awaiting the advice, but there is there is again the fear and the anxiety and how it's going to ease out, and of course there is a tendency where communities, especially now next week, it's going to be the celebration of Eid, where families really want to be together, and we'll have to refrain from getting together. So yeah, it's really managing all that, and hopefully it can be now eased back into people being able to come together in the near future. And what it has really showed me as well is how children are affected because they're not at school, and they miss the interaction, and how difficult it is for parents to homeschool them and manage them with everything else. And so we hope that before schools open, even we can organize some activities for children in our center, if that can be allowed soon.
And what's kind of your hopes of coming out of this? Obviously, you've got you want to open the building back up. There's a need for the community to get that space and togetherness and get that support. How do you see this coming out of this, and what kind of things do you think that you've learned most that you would like to maybe see implemented so that you can carry on giving this great service that you do?
Well, the anxiety and the fear obviously will have to be alleviated into easing back into the activities and at the center. But the social distancing is a concept that's very difficult for our communities to manage when they live in extended families. But what is also brought to light with all the NHS professionals losing their lives and all that is we really need to address the things like diabetes and all the illnesses that are common to our communities. And that really needs to be worked at with the Community Empowerment Network into addressing heart disease and diabetes, which has been part of our agenda anyway, but we really need to bring that forward and work on that because it's educating the community as well as addressing those issues.
And so your continued work, just lastly, with WCEN and the various other community networks that you're working with, the importance of, as you said, working with outside organizations and stuff, because, maybe gone through this as well, public funding and things, or because people haven't been coming through the doors, these community places may be at risk of closing down. So who knows what's going to kind of be happening out of that. So what would you say to those who are listening and those people who are the funders and things like that to keep WCEN and your Mushkil Aasaan and all these other community faith networks going? The importance of that partnership, especially in light of what's just happened, and because you guys were key to getting people through these types of things.
Well, they need to understand the need for our services because we are the heart of the community, and that's where people come to. And they need to understand how, in the long term, it saves them. And not put barriers for us in getting such funding.
Excellent. So basically, if you could just leave us with any contact details about your website or your social medias that maybe people can contact you guys through and get some more information if they can require your services.
Yes, we are. We've got a new website that come out very recently. In it also is our Mushkil Action website, which shows the campaign that was run when of the home care contract, and then how it was revised back. And people can contact us through the website or by telephone or email. Sorry, the website address is mushkilaasaan.com.
Right. And your email?
The main email is mushkil@mushkilaasaan.com.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. So what we'll do is we'll put that information and the details below, and then anybody who wants to contact you can do so through there. So thank you so much for sharing this time with us. There was so much great information out there, and the work that you guys are doing, may it continue, and hopefully, things will start, as you said, easing up so people can start getting back in there and you guys can continue on to work efficiently.
And it just shows how much more we need to do together.
Yeah, there's always work to be done. So thank you so much for the contributions that you guys are doing. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Be safe and be well.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was Naseem from Mushkil Aasaan. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We will leave all those details that she said down below in the information. If you want to leave any comments or suggestions, then please do so down below. Alternatively, if you want to contact us, you've got any tips or experiences or anything that you would like to share also with us, then please do on info@wcen.org.uk. Please also go and check out the website where you can sign up to the newsletter and get some helpful tips and information, especially as when the next podcast shows are coming out also. That's on www.wcen.co.uk. If you want to find out the latest government and healthcare guidelines, then please visit www.gov.uk Or for more local information, check out www.wandsworth.gov.uk. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. If you find this valuable, then please share it with somebody else. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next show. Stay safe and stay well. You're listening to the WCEN podcast.